Hey, Chris and John. There's an recent article in TechCrunch that just came out, and it says OpenAI reportedly plans to charge up to $20,000 a month for a specialized AI agent. I can't read the source article according to the information because they wanted $700 for me to read this. But it says like a high income knowledge worker agent could be priced, in the $2,000 range. I don't know if like how many tasks that does or if it's just Q&A type of thing, but the PhD level research agent for $20,000 a month seems excessive, especially when, like I saw yesterday, somebody asked ChatGPT how many R's are in strawberry and it said 2, because there's just 2 together. So I can't imagine spending 20 grand a month, right? It's almost $250,000 for something like that. What are y'all's thoughts on specialized agents from OpenAI?
Well, it's interesting. I have sticker shock, to put it mildly. It's it's like this. I think it's interesting. I like the fact they've identified people will want agents or specialized knowledge associated with just having OpenAI to answer questions. But the catch-22 is, what is it actually going to do? And how is this just a business model to make the street happy? Or is this something that they're actually saying, we think in earnest we should do this? I mean, we have found people want agents. They want them to accomplish outcomes. Nobody just wants that we've talked to just wants a general agent to answer a question that's open on the internet. That's all. It has to do something with like their data, their processes, the context in that. But it's it's I don't know, John, do you think it's just a play for funds? Or they're trying to figure out how do they become profitable versus the way the other LLMs are doing it?
I I don't know. There's a lot about OpenAI's strategy over the last several months that I don't understand. I don't even understand who, other than the roadshow guy, Sam, is even still there. Um, there's been so much turnover in the leadership of that company, and Sam spends a whole lot of time in front of audiences with an OpenAI picture in the background, but not at OpenAI. So I really don't know who's actually doing what there. Um, the they're not they're not going to get far with this unless they get these agents essentially onboarded into the organizations that are hiring them. And because if you're trying to basically establish the value of a relatively high paid employee and say that I'm just like that, I'm OpenAI, and I'm just like that, I'm actually accomplishing the work of say 2, 3, 4 of said employee, so I should at least cost the amount of one. Okay, there's the argument, right? That might have been said somewhere inside of OpenAI's leadership team. And now, okay, great. Let's stick a price of what is it? 240 is the going rate on a really strong engineer. So let's pull that. We could pull that off if we say we're 3 times as good, but we're not, right? We're currently a frustrating, sometimes helpful, sometimes not helpful coding buddy to an existing engineer. So we're certainly not the value of 3 engineers. We're the value of helping an existing engineer. So I'm with you, Chris, on the sticker shock side. And the onboarding comment, you know, if you just if you think that the person you're replacing or the 3 people you're replacing with this one artificial person is going to be capable of doing the work of 3 people, you'd better show them how. You better give them a login. They better have a desk, notionally, right? They better have accounts in your system. They better be told what the process is. They better be really well versed in how your company operates relative to the center point of the internet training model, training data that the model's been given. And I just think the generalized nature of what an agent would be capable of doing would not be sufficient for a company to be able to get value from it. If it did somehow get onboarded thoroughly, I think maybe you got a shot. But then even still, as soon as you make something specialized and you don't wrap it with an orchestration capability, you immediately put people in the responsibility of making it valuable. People are your integration strategy. you're going to have people have to figure out how to interface with that agent in order for it to accomplish nothing more than tasks, because that's all you'll be able to accomplish. If you were to integrate that agent capability with other agent capabilities and orchestrate them from a machine run orchestration platform, you could get superhuman, right? That I continue to struggle. It makes a certain amount of sense again for OpenAI to do this. That apparently the vast majority of their revenue comes from paid chat sessions versus the vast majority of Anthropic getting the majority from API-based stuff. And I've seen that and heard that to be the case myself, right? A whole lot of people who are building chatbots and coding assistants and all these are using API-based Anthropic models, Claude 3.5, more recently 3.7. And when you talk about more business people or non-technical people who are interfacing with a GPT, they're talking about OpenAI. So I can totally see how they're trying to rev up the thing they're already doing. I guess they think that that's a asset and they're revving it up that direction. I just don't see how it's actually going to play out. And they're confusing the very people that are the less technical engineering types by having an O series, and they skipped one of the O's, and they got a mini and a not mini version, and now they have a new version of the GPT line. And, it's not like these things get really sexy logos and one is the sedan and one's the sports car, or one's the truck and there's no model for how you understand the models, right? It's almost like you got to ask their own model, can you explain me how to rationalize a GPT 4.4.0, and then there's an 01, 03, and then there's a 4.5. Now there's a GPT 4.5. Can you help me understand did any of that make sense to you, ChatGPT? So again, I just think, of course, I'm not trying to cast stones at anybody. And OpenAI has been a fundamental part of enabling incredible change, for the good, in my opinion. I just wonder what the heck they're thinking about a certain amount of these things. And that means, to me, as an outsider looking in, they seem a little in disarray.
Yep.
maybe all the model numbers are just a bunch of skunk work projects, and the guys that work on the models in the office have the O models, and the guys that work at home have the numbered models. I have no idea. I mean, but it's interesting because there's demand for the specialized agent, because people, like the less technical people, business people, they're asking it questions, but they're not relevant to the business, right? So there's that demand. So then I want to buy one of these. How do I do it, right? But if you get priced out from the OpenAI price, because you'll need, like, everyone would need an agent for everything, right? I mean, this is just
Yep.
at $2,000. It probably just helps a person, right? And the people are still the integration strategy, like you said. You would have like so many of these, and hopefully they work together, or you know you build your own, right? Like, hey, we're going to create a budget, and then let's just build one, right? And so that's when, so I want to talk about the surface level of here we are, the iceberg. I knew when I saw the iceberg, you guys, I thought of Jinglish. I have to share this with him, because the iceberg is so cliche, but it works, right? Because the the Q&A agents that people are talking to and getting answers from, man, they look simple. I just ask it anything and it tells me, but I don't know if it tells me the truth. But building one, this guy, Rakesh, we found this image on Twitter or X. He kind of lays it out here. There's some good ideas. I don't really agree with the order in some of these, but Chris, what's your take on what's, below the waterline here?
Yeah. And so, Scott, I agree. People kind of sticker shock, build versus buy. So the first thing you do is like, well, can I just build this? And what I like about this is what the little bit above the water is actually what you see. Everything below the water is everything to make this work. Now, Yeah, like you said, I'm a little concerned. I think orchestration should be higher, and the tools and the way they've grouped them together seem a little bit odd. It makes me think that they're going with a very single purpose agent, and it's very task oriented. Like what I'm more interested in is what's missing, right? And when I look at this, I'm like, well, ETL, extract, translate, load, that's a batch job, right? What about real time integration to my systems? Because if I wanted an agent to work with customers, say customer support, first thing I need to do is actually look up the person in customer support to get their context, right?
Yeah, that's a good
Or
point. There's no Oracle, Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho, none of them.
There's no integration bus.
There's
yeah,
no, yeah, there's no
yeah,
ESD. Is there
ESD
API layer
missing.
at least?
Yeah, and we actually consider that part of orchestration. They're looking at orchestration very myopically, like agent orchestration and like looking at LLM, but we actually look at it much higher. Orchestration is what's the context of the business problem you want to solve. And you're going to have multiple. Sometimes it's a customer support and you want to look up your tickets. Other times it's accounts receivable payable. Sometimes it's actually general questions about warranties and manuals and how things work, or they could be internal to your company like HR. So, first thing we have to realize is you're going to have agents and you're going to have lots of them, and they're going to each need to have some special connections to systems. So, we consider that orchestration because the context of who you are is most important to getting you the right answer the first time versus a lot of times when you ask an agent a question, you just get back another question. So all of a sudden you realize, well, it didn't answer my question. You just posed more questions. So, how do we actually get the right orchestration and look at connecting to systems that's going to be real time because the context of that changes? And then let's think about how do you want this experience to work? Quite honestly, an LLM is not the only AI out there, and people keep forgetting that. Like you have categorizers, you have things that regressors, which predict numbers, which can help you make decisions autonomously. So you don't have to ask every manager, can I give the person a 10% discount to keep them from churning because they want to like go to another service, right? What about all the natural language processing to figure out are they actually asking a general question? Are they asking something that is an orchestration? Like when they say they want to change their plan or they want to cancel their service, that's not just a yes no question out of an FAQ that says you can cancel 30 days prior. That's actually triggering through natural language and intent and an orchestration to save the customer and figure out why do they want to churn. So I think that these are interesting, but what's important is what's missing. Like there's lots of AIs out there. Categorizers are ultra powerful. And the best thing about a categorizer is I can continuously train it so it gets more accurate and more accurate over time. Yes, you can use an LLM to categorize, but you're not going to fine tune it to get it to do what you want to do, especially with
Well, some
subtlety.
things,
Yeah.
some things that are language based can be classified with LLMs, but even there, I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Yep.
Um, that the so first, to the gentleman who put this picture together, it's always easy to tear up someone else's pictures, right? And he can't fit everything. So we're not actually trying to take shots at Rakesh.
No,
But
I'm
they're just
I'm glad he
Yeah.
did it, right?
but
Because
exactly. The real point is it's all this and even more. In fact, the big miss from my perspective is where are people?
Yeah.
Where are people? I I I I continue to be befuddled that we think of let's build something sophisticated, let's be outcome oriented, and we only think about interfacing with a single person. We have no notion of workflow management of the people involved to get a job done. And even even the notion of a longer than minutes type of interaction when real outcomes can be months long. It's just completely befuddling me because, by the way, this isn't the first time, right? The industry that we are in is sort of diseased with this forgetfulness of people are involved in outcomes, and and you better make sure they're an equal participant in the way that and in the way that your platform is put together. So anyway, I not get another opportunity to take a shot at Rakesh, who I think is proving a very important point. There are a lot of capabilities that need to be orchestrated, right, in order to pull off a real agent. And by the way, an agent ends up really equivalent of an AI-based way to perform a task. And now that you've got lots of those, you now need to, of course, embody them in, again, that word orchestration, we use it a lot, I guess. Um, so where I would go from here, if I were looking at, all right, 20 grand a month, and I don't even know how I would get it productive, to building it myself is easily a 10x that in terms of all the engineering skills I would need in order to get enough people and enough time in order to get even something going. Um, Obviously, that's why we live in this space and why we think that we've got a great alternative for you guys. And we hope that you take a look at it.
Yeah, I think that's a good moral to look at. It's like off the shelf may not work because it's like your policies. And I don't know that for like 3 grand a month, they're actually going to retrain a neural network to be specific to your business. And we know there's no way to really do that without hallucinations because there's too much knowledge just learning how to speak languages and complete sentences. You're never going to isolate that to what you're doing. And so there's a lot of opportunities here. So it's what I like is the fact that he's called the attention that you could do it. There's a lot more to this. And John, as you said, orchestration across people. Because I mean, I know Scott, we've talked about this. You've used agents on like the phone and the internet services, and they can't actually answer the question you want because they're just call trees that have been rejiggered into a chatbot. So I think we need to be clear. We're talking about actually much more highly functioning natural language to figure those things. And then can it actually solve a problem? Can it get to integration or systems? And when it doesn't know what to do, it's valid. Can I escalate to a person to actually have them? And maybe the person actually comes into the chat with you to solve it, or they're a manager approving something in the background without you having to wait copious times, or better yet, if it's a repeatable approval, can we train an AI model to categorize yes or no and have those happens in the background? So I think there's interesting things that happen, but realize there's a lot of different AIs. They're going to make this useful for you, and you're going to want 20 of these. Once you get the first one right, you're going to want 20 more, right? Because it will be highly valuable. It's not going to be like a task agent helping me with something in a document or a spreadsheet. Once you get one and you get the bug, you're going to want tons of these out there.
Yeah, I mean, you'll want lots, right? But constructing the first one, like John said, is 10x
Mhm.
the cost, and you probably don't have the skill, you don't have the infrastructure, you probably surely don't have budget set aside. Like, oh, I didn't realize this thing was going to be $1 million to build, right? For
Yeah.
one, and then it's if you code it to a certain task or a certain process, like, that's it. And like, "Oh, we should build an agent for this." There's like, you're gonna do it over again if you're not using a platform approach,
Yep.
which basically has all of these features, right? With the security and the orchestration and all
That's
the
right.
integration and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, it would, it'd be like buying a car that only goes to the grocery store and buying another car that only goes to carpool and buying a car that only goes to, dinner
Yeah.
or whatever. It sounds ridiculous, but
That is
I don't,
what happens.
people are,
Yeah.
they're not going to believe it until they try it. And just like happened to us years ago when we were talking about conversational automation and everyone thought that we were full of it. Then Chat GPT comes out. They're like, oh my God, this is what these guys have been talking about forever.
Yeah. Well,
So
and
so just yesterday, I'm sorry, Chris, but just yesterday had a great call with a new partner that we're onboarding, and he basically told the story you just did, Scott. He said, "Look, we've been delivering AI-based custom apps for people, and we've gotten pretty good at it, um, but we take it's an enormous amount of labor, and they basically are a good proof point for the whole thing that open source is free, but but you end up with is free of license cost, but it ends up quite a significant human labor cost, which by the way is significantly higher than most software license costs. but that doesn't really process, right? So they've done a couple of projects, they've done a number of successful ones, and they realize that there's no next step that is any faster or easier for them in those existing accounts. But a Krista deployment is naturally now better, faster, cheaper to get the next solution built and to get the next one after that. It increases the momentum and the velocity of their ability to get things, more and more things done. With that other one, they've just done a whole big LangChain, LangFuse, bunch of Python, built a whole bunch of web stuff, wired into a bunch of stuff, created a whole bunch of bespoke, content onboarding stuff. And now the next project is essentially file new project. They do the whole thing over again. And it doesn't actually lend itself to anything more than just more point solution siloed stuff. And of course, if there was no better way to do this and there's a value prop, in other words, it pays you back and then some, you do it. But there is such a better way. And earlier in the same day, had a conversation with someone who was saying it back to us. Look, we've already got 30 projects we want to take on with AI. I don't want to hire 30 vendors. I don't want 30 different vendor plans. I can only run 2 or 3 of these at a time at most. I can't possibly imagine picking, even just from this iceberg picture, some random collection of them 30 times and trying to make all that work with 30 dev teams and get all, no, and again, no, right? There's just and that's the, we're hearing from our, in that case, customer, and in the other, partner, about how they see the unbelievable velocity that is associated with a common orchestration of a constantly changing underneath, right? You definitely pick any one of the logos in a group and realize that you may need to jump from that to another one, or even one that's not yet there. It's too early a market for us to be deciding, all right, I'm going with X. Well, X is now a company. I can't say X.
Yeah.
I'm going with N. Is N a company? Do we know what?
A
We
prime.
need to look up N. A prime.
I think Notion
Every
actually
name's
uses an
taken.
N
I bet every name's
for-
taken. I can't say
Yeah.
anything that isn't going to be like, oh, that's us. He just that's copyright, whatever it is. So
There's also one that's the alphabet, so it's every letter, right?
yeah. All right. Well, to my point, not to my digression, that we don't know what we don't know. What we need is to build in resiliency and the ability to be adaptable, agile, and that probably the most important attribute of an AI strategy. Not, hey, this thing can do this. Let's see if we can stick it in front of a bunch of people and they get, all of a sudden we make more money or we save a lot of money. Because frankly, though none of those projects are really certainly going to make you better, it's funny because we don't really think about, you optimize a step of a process, you may just get extra inventory. It doesn't necessarily make the outcome go faster. And this is proven in all kinds of ways. In traffic, line up, make traffic go faster in one segment, and you end up with a massive slowdown later. And people get home later than they would have if you'd actually made that segment shorter, not faster, right? Or I should say slower, not faster. All kinds of good studies that essentially systems thinking needs to be applied to this, to spare a whole bunch of nonsense detail. Systems thinking has to be applied to this. And that doesn't lend itself to, there's a $20,000 agent. Why don't we just bring that person in? Because of course they could do this faster than that agent could, an AI agent could definitely do this faster than a person, potentially. But a person will have to be the one who actually instructs it. A person will be the one evaluating its results. And a person will then be taking it from that agent to the next step in the process. And none of that sounds all that fast to me, because that person's already busy. And that person's going to basically have that agent sitting 16, 17, 18 hours a day with nothing to do. So how do we make these things really valuable? The answer is we make the machines do the work. We make the machine do more of the work, which is why we use this analogy all the time of, you don't invoke Krista. Krista invokes you. Krista owns the outcome. When Krista needs your help, you'll be hearing from her in a conversational way. You don't go to a screen and say, all right, is there anything, is there a screen that I need to be into? No. You will get a message. A message will say what Krista needs. And it might be, I don't understand this. Can you help me? Or I need you to do this in the real world because I don't have hands and feet yet. And, stuff like that. When you think of it the other way, again, someone who's building an agent and saying, gee, didn't I do something very valuable for you? Aren't your outcomes going to be optimized? Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because if it takes too long to get the agent active on something, and if the agent's outcome, even if it's faster than what it would be in the human world, doesn't get consumed right at the moment that it was produced, it doesn't speed anything up. So we've got to think systems thinking.
Yep.
Agree. With that, I mean, that's an incredible ender. Chris, you have anything else you want to add?
Nope. Other than, hey, check out Chris's platform because we've done a lot of thinking about this over the last 4 years.
Yeah. If you don't want to spend 20 grand, call us. If you're going to spend 2 million, then build the iceberg.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, guys. Till next time.
Bye now.